Okay, rights, roles, and responsibility of the Nahaleo Maui homeowner. Have a down payment. Now, I get to change this slide. I didn't have time to change it at 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon when I learned that Home Street Bank can now go back to 3% down payment loans. Very significant that way. So this slide will be modified to say, have a down payment available, 3%. Have funds for closing, 2%. That doesn't change. That's going to be about the same. Qualify for and obtain a mortgage. Understand the resale formula that gives you a limited return on your change in value of your home when you decide to sell. Enjoy the privileges of using the land on which your home is built. And understand the ground lease agreement and agree to abide by its terms. We, as the stewards of the land, do enforce our ground lease because the terms and conditions in there are very important to preserve affordability and all of that. So this is something that you've got to be really familiar with, the ground lease and what it contains, because we will be there to enforce it. The Nahaleo Maui ground lease, rights, responsibilities, and requirements. Responsibility to the community. You have an obligation to use the land in a responsible way. We're dealing with residentially zoned property, and you're not going to be able to set up an auto chop shop in your front yard in one of our houses. It just doesn't work that way. Inheritance. You can will your home to your heirs, your immediate family, and that is all defined in the ground lease, and it includes domestic partners and all of that. Ground lease fee. You're responsible for paying a monthly ground lease fee of $45 a month. Property taxes. You're responsible for paying all the property taxes on your home and the land it sits on. That's very common in all leasehold interests, but the significant thing for our homeowners is that, number one, the residential workforce housing policy of the county tells the assessor to take restricted resale values into account when they are assessing a property. A property that has a restricted resale value does not have the same value as one that doesn't. Number two, because there's a $200,000 exemption for homeowners on Maui County, most of our homeowners are paying the minimum property tax per year, and that's $250,000. Excuse me, $250. Whew! The minimum property tax is $250 a year. That is a little over $20 a month. So property taxes for our homeowners are not a significant financial burden because of the lower price of our homes, the $200,000 exemption, and the county's assessor's responsibility to take into account restricted resale value when they assess the property. Home improvements. You may, with permission, make capital improvements to your home. Okay, continuing with rights, responsibilities, and requirements. Loans. You may borrow money against your home, but the loan cannot be secured by the land and cannot be for more than the amount of equity that is yours. The foreclosure crisis that we're just coming out of, that has stretched out for years, was partially caused by homeowners having the ability to treat their homes like an ATM machine and refi, pull out money, and then finally they wound up underwater. Couldn't sell, short sales, highest foreclosure numbers we've ever seen in the islands. Maui County experienced the highest foreclosure rate ever recorded starting in 2008. So that type of, using the equity in your home like a cash card or an ATM machine led a lot of people into trouble. We are there to help you get into home ownership, but we're also going to be there to help you avoid the pitfalls that have hurt so many families in the last few years. We are paternalistic enough that we're not going to allow you to use your home as an ATM machine. Yes, you can refi, and I'll give you an example. Several of our homeowners who bought 5 years ago realized that interest rates had gone down in those 5 years, and they came in and asked if they could refi. And we said, yes, as long as you don't increase your debt against the property. And they said, fine, that's no problem. We've paid down our loan several $1,000s over the last few years, and we can save as much as $250 a month in mortgage payments because we can get lower interest rates now. So those homeowners have refinanced, they lowered their payment by doing so, but that's different than pulling out money to go buy a truck, okay? So lowering your monthly payment is exactly what we're here to help you do. And several of our homeowners have already taken advantage of that. And yes, you can, as you build equity over time, access it, but it can only be for the amount of equity that you have earned in the property. So it's not an easy ATM machine that you can walk up and just pull money out of. Principal residence, you must live in your home and you may not rent it out. Now, I often get the question, oh, you know, we're buying a 4-bedroom home and we don't need the 4th bedroom. Can we rent that out? The answer to that is yes. As long as you are living in the home. If you wanted to rent out one of the bedrooms for income to help you make the mortgage payment, go for it. But you have to live in the home as your principal residence. If you were to call us up and say, hey, I'm moving to Oahu, I'm going to rent my house out, we'd have to say, I'm sorry, we'll have to buy it back from you because you will be violating the terms of the ground lease. And it's not a rental property. So these discounts and subsidies you're getting are to benefit you and as the homeowner, not somebody else through a rental situation. Problem solving, any disputes that cannot be resolved directly will go to mediation. Future affordability, you agree to share the affordability that's been created for you with the next home buyer for generations to come. We have had our first resale, and I'll tell you, the resale formula worked exactly the way we hoped it would work. We had a homeowner, single mom with 2 daughters who bought a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home that we rehabbed in the Legends at Maui Lani. She lived in it 3 years, called me up one day and said, John, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is I've fallen in love and gotten married. The bad news is my husband is in the military and he's stationed in Texas, and we have to move to Texas and sell our home. So we pulled out the ground lease, we went through the steps, new inspection, appraisal, all of that. We bought the house back from her. She bought the house from us for $85,000. We bought it back from her for $293,000 or $4,000. She had some equity. She had paid down her loan, so she got that equity. She got her down payment back, her earned equity, and a share of the appreciation. She got on the plane with a check in her hand that was many $1,000s more than she came into the transaction 3 years before. And she had a beautiful home to live in for those 3 years. Her daughters walked to school, one of the best schools on the island, and she was happy. And you know who else is happy? The family that's in the house now. Because we were able to resell that house the second time for, again, under $300,000. And this house appraised at the time for $450,000. So the resale formula worked. We tried to balance the homeowner's need to build equity over time with our need to keep it affordable for the next family. And it worked just as we had hoped. When I was researching the community land trust movement about 10 years ago, one of the things I came across that really convinced me that this was a very good model to consider was the fact that a study had been done by the Burlington Community Land Trust, one of the largest and oldest land trusts in the country. And they found that 74% of their homeowners who sold their community land trust homes were able to take their equity and go up and buy unrestricted fee simple homes in the area, freeing up those community land trust homes for the next set of first-time home buyers. And this is the way the real world of real estate is supposed to work. You start out with a starter home, your family grows, your income grows, your equity grows, and then you trade up, move up into a bigger home that way. And that happens within the community land trust movement. And some homeowners stay within the community land trust inventory. But those who want to get up and go into fee simple, this is the first step, and the first rung on the ladder to get them started, to build equity so that they can do that. So one of the things that had concerned me about different types of affordability models is if you put somebody in a box they can't ever get out of, that's not a good thing. So that study convinced me that this is a really viable model, and if someday you built the equity and you have the opportunity to get into fee simple unrestricted, great, because you're just going to free up a house for another low and moderate income family who will take advantage of it. Okay, so when you sell your home, we're going to take a look at how this whole resale formula works. When you sell your home, you're entitled to get back your cash equity, your down payment, either 3 or 5%, depending on when you joined our program and what the rate was available at that time. Your earned equity, the loan principal you pay off by making your monthly mortgage payments. And yeah, it's not a lot at first, but as time goes on, that amount that goes to principal gets bigger and bigger, and the amount that goes to interest gets smaller and smaller. And this is one of the significant differences between ownership and rental. In our program, when you're making your monthly payments, you're paying down your loan. When you're renting a property and you're making your monthly rent payments, you're paying down the landlord's loan. You're getting no benefit from it, but the landlord is building more and more equity as you pay down their loan. So keep that in mind. A share of the market equity, a portion of the increase or decrease in the value of your home while you own it. And that is computed by a resale formula, which we're going to take a look at.